informational webinar. As you've just heard, we're recording this webinar. If you do not wish to be recorded, you may disconnect now, but we hope that you'll stay with us. So for those of you that are just joining now, we ask that folks introduce yourself in the chat, typing your first and last name and your organization name if you could, so we know who's with us today. And as I stated earlier, please leave yourself on mute during the presentation. You may unmute yourself to ask questions. The chat function of this webinar can be used to interact with others, to ask questions of the presenters. We invite you to share your video of yourself, but you don't need to. All the presenters are on video, so it's really up to your personal preference. And we will be sharing the recording of this presentation with all of you. And thank you so much for joining us. So our agenda for today, we will give an overview and introductions for this webinar. We'll talk about Volunteer New Hampshire resources and AmeriCorps state grants. Then we'll talk about AmeriCorps Vista. After that, we'll hear about AmeriCorps National Civilian Community Corps, or NCCC. And then last but not least, we'll cover AmeriCorps seniors. And then at the conclusion, we'll provide some resources and contact information. And we will have a Q&A after each of these sections and also at the end of the webinar. And the plan is to wrap this up in about an hour. So today's presenters, I'll introduce myself first. I'm Ann Ostberg. I'm a senior portfolio manager with AmeriCorps Northeast region, which includes New Hampshire and 6 other states in the Northeast. And
I'll go ahead. Good afternoon.
Go ahead.
Andrea Johnston. I'm the Senior Program Officer with Volunteer New Hampshire.
And good morning, or good afternoon, everyone. My name's Alana Svensson-Holtz. I'm an Assistant Program Director with AmeriCorps NCCC. All right, so let's talk about what is AmeriCorps. AmeriCorps is an independent federal grant-making government agency whose mission is to improve lives, strengthen communities, and foster civic participation through service and volunteering. So for over 25 years, AmeriCorps has helped to engage millions of citizens in meeting community and national challenges through service and volunteer action. AmeriCorps is focused on 6 key areas in order to make an impact, and those are disaster services, education, economic opportunity, environmental stewardship, healthy futures, veterans and military families. And we'll talk more about how to access resources as it relates to those throughout today's presentation. So while many people are familiar with the name AmeriCorps, what a lot of people don't know is that there are in fact many different programs that fall under the AmeriCorps umbrella. So there's AmeriCorps, which is the name of the agency. And then under that, there are actually 2 branches, AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps Seniors. AmeriCorps consists of 3 programs, AmeriCorps State and National, AmeriCorps Vista, and AmeriCorps NCCC. And then AmeriCorps Seniors is a program for people 55 plus, and it houses 3 programs, which is Retired Senior Volunteer Program, or RSVP, Foster Grandparent Program, and the Senior Companion Program. So we're going to spend the rest of our time together today diving into each of these programs, as well as some other resources. And we're going to actually kick it off with the AmeriCorps programs on the left. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrea, who's going to start with Volunteer New Hampshire and some of their programs.
Okay, thanks, Alana. So yes, we're going to dive into AmeriCorps State as well as Volunteer New Hampshire resources. We have a ton of information. We've condensed it down for you, so we're happy to take questions, and then certainly you can connect with each of us at the end to get more information on each of the different resources and programming that we offer. All right, so some of you might have heard of Volunteer New Hampshire, but who is Volunteer New Hampshire? So we are what's considered the designated state Commission office for New Hampshire. So every state has one, and Volunteer New Hampshire is it for New Hampshire. So we receive federal funds from the federal agency AmeriCorps, which Alana just went over, and we subgrant those out to develop and implement AmeriCorps state programs. The other greater mission that Volunteer New Hampshire has is that we help to engage communities to solve local challenges through volunteerism. Okay, and for the main ways that we engage national service and volunteer programs, we'll take a deeper dive into those. So the first one being connected. We have this great online volunteer platform called Get Connected. You can access it through Volunteer New Hampshire. So if your organization isn't already a part of this, we highly recommend that you go on and register. So it's a volunteer management engagement platform. So you have your organization, you have volunteer opportunities. You can go in here and register and then post all of them. And then folks that are looking to volunteer can go on and register and then search your volunteer opportunities. So it's a great way to find volunteers for your organization. Also, if you have a program that does volunteer days for your whole group of staff, you can go on and look for a group activity for your staff to participate in. Or if you're just looking to volunteer individually, you can go in and search by region or your interest area to look for these volunteer opportunities. You'll see the numbers at the bottom of the screen. So we currently have 428 active volunteer opportunities, and we have almost 4,000 users registered. So we encourage you, go on, register if you haven't already. We also have an app that you can download to manage things. So it's a great resource. Okay, and the next way we participate in celebrating volunteerism in the state is with our Volunteer Spirit of New Hampshire Awards. So this is something that happens annually. This year it's going to be October 23rd in Concord, New Hampshire at the Bank of New Hampshire stage. So this is the largest statewide volunteer recognition ceremony in the state. We have different categories of volunteers that we recognize. So from youth to seniors to adults, we recognize national service members, also businesses and nonprofits as well. So a great opportunity to recognize and celebrate volunteerism in the state. So some ways that you can get involved and access this is you can nominate an individual, a group, or an organization. So if you have these outstanding volunteers, which we all do in our organizations, please nominate. And the nominations are closed right now. They typically run from April to September, but be thinking about next year and who you want to nominate, the groups that you work with and your individual volunteers. You could also serve on our Spirit of New Hampshire committee, which helps to plan the event. We're always looking for volunteers, so a great way to engage. And then we also have our nomination committee. So if you'd like to help out and be involved, you can review the different nominations and be part of that committee as well. If you'd like to take a look at last year's event, you can go online and we have a recording of that. It's super inspirational. You can see all of the awardees and learn more about what it is that they've volunteered for and how they've impacted and given back to communities. Okay, and then Volunteer New Hampshire, we also support volunteerism by helping to train volunteers and volunteer managers throughout the state. One of the large ways that we do this is through our Governor's Conference on Volunteerism. That's going to be happening sometime in May of 2024. We'll be releasing that date later in this year, early into 2024. So this is a great way to network with volunteer management professionals across the state, attend some professional development sessions. Some ways that you can be involved is, of course, attend the event. You can also submit a form to be able to present. If you have a great training that you do and you'd like to share it with other nonprofit and volunteer managers, please do contact us to be able to present. You could also serve on the planning committee. Again, we're always looking for volunteers to help out to structure what the event's going to look like. We also offer the Volunteer Manager of the Year Award, so you can you can nominate an outstanding volunteer manager for that as well at the event. We do also offer recordings of each of the sessions on our Volunteer Resource Center, which is located on our website, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move through. Okay, and another way we help to provide training and education is we have our New Hampshire Volunteer Engagement Network, also known as NEVN for short. So this is a group of volunteer managers and nonprofit professionals that get together quarterly to discuss all things related to volunteerism. So we do have an upcoming meeting that's happening September 13th at 12 noon. You can reach out to us if you'd like to be part of this, and we can register you and send you the Zoom link. We also offer the Volunteer Resource Center, which is part of our website. It's a searchable online database. So if you're looking for a specific topic in volunteer management or even different volunteer resources, you can go on and search for that on our website. We also have a base camp, which you can share best practices. You can go on and ask questions specific to volunteer management. You can post resources, all different engagement activities. It's a great way to network with the volunteer management community and also to find answers to questions that you might have or to share great resources that you have, good examples of that as well. Okay, and then last but not least, we steward. So we administer the AmeriCorps state grants throughout the state. So basically, what is that? So programs that have a great idea to help solve a community problem, and they're doing that through the use of AmeriCorps members and certain activities to help work on that problem. They apply to Volunteer New Hampshire for a grant to be able to operate a program. That's the larger picture of it. So then you might be thinking, well, what exactly are AmeriCorps members? I've heard of them. I know other nonprofits that use them. So they have very specific qualifications and then benefits that are offered to them for serving. So the first being that you must be at least 17 years of age or older. There's no upper age limit. We've had AmeriCorps members serve in their 80s. You must be a U.S. citizen or U.S. permanent resident. And then you must have a high school diploma or GED or agree to be working on one while you're serving. And you also have to pass different levels of criminal history checks. That's very specific to members and then staff that would be working for the program as well. And then each of our programs have very specific qualifications geared towards that program. Like some of them might want a certain level of education, degree attainment. Some of them might want a background in a certain area. And then others are pretty open and fluid to that. So it really depends on the program the AmeriCorps members applying to. So some of the benefits that AmeriCorps members get for serving, they get what's called a living allowance. This isn't it's not a wage, it's a living allowance. So currently for the 2024 upcoming program year, that will be, I think it's $18,700 is the minimum amount that AmeriCorps members can earn for full-time service. And full-time service looks like 1,700 hours for a period of 10 to 12 months. They also receive an education award for full-time members. That's just about 6,800 and change. And again, that's for full-time service, and for successful completion of service, they would get that education award. That award can be used to pay off qualifying student loans or go towards existing schooling classes, things of that nature. Another great benefit of the education award is if you're over 55, that award can be transferred to either a child or a grandchild. So if you don't need it, don't plan on using it, and you're over 55, another great additional benefit to serving as an AmeriCorps member. They also receive health insurance. It's a basic plan, but everyone has to be offered it. For qualifying individuals, childcare is also available. And then last but not least, professional and personal development. So every member that serves goes through an orientation with their program, and then they get very specific training to help them navigate their service year. So whatever field that they've gone into, they will get this training with the program. And then as in terms of the personal development, a lot of our programs go on and help out with career pathways. So they'll link AmeriCorps members to professionals in the community to learn more about career options and next steps after service. They also will get things like resume writing and other different personal development things, as well as leadership skills. The list goes on, but a lot of additional benefits there for professional and personal development. Okay, so right about now, you might be wondering, how can my organization utilize AmeriCorps resources? Well, there's a few different ways. If you're not looking to operate a full AmeriCorps program, you could apply to become a host site. So what you would do is reach out directly to one of our existing AmeriCorps programs, and all of those can be found on our website. You would look to see if their organization, the program is a match to what you're trying to do with your organization. And then you could reach out to them directly to figure out if it'd be a good fit. So host sites usually take 1 to 2 AmeriCorps members. They have very specific program and focus activities geared towards the program that they're working with. There may be a host site fee involved for taking on 1 or 2 AmeriCorps members. And then you have to be able to provide supervision to those AmeriCorps members. You have to be able to help to collect different data to make sure that the members in the program is doing, what they said they were going to do to meet community needs. And then the AmeriCorps program might have very specific requirements to them as well. So that's one option. Another option is to become a planning grant. So there's no members associated with this. And these are grants that we offer that are up to $75,000. So organizations can spend up to a year developing and helping to operate an AmeriCorps program. So if you have an idea in mind and you've identified a compelling community need and you have data and statistics that can back that up, you can certainly apply for a planning grant. So you would spend that year working on that need, developing community partners, figuring out how you're going to write to the notice of funding and really develop that program throughout the year. This is also something that's required before you apply to become a program grant with us. So something to consider if you would like to eventually operate an AmeriCorps state program. So then we do have our program grants, and these are full AmeriCorps grants that we offer to operate a program. We typically ask that you be able to take at least 10 AmeriCorps members. That helps to make a core and create esprit de corps. We offer grants that have gone between $160,000 and then upwards of $1 million. They have to pertain to one of the designated focus areas through AmeriCorps. Alana had mentioned those earlier in the slides, and we have them listed here. We have more information about what each one of those focus areas means, what's involved in it. So you would want to take a look and make sure that your community need would fit into there. We do offer some specific Volunteer New Hampshire focus areas as well, and those are located on our website too. And again, I had mentioned you must have been a planning grant with Volunteer New Hampshire or have prior AmeriCorps experience operating a program to be able to apply with us. We do offer 2 different grant cycles throughout the year. One is in February, and that's for AmeriCorps state formula programs. So that's applying directly to Volunteer New Hampshire as the commission office. And then we have a whole review committee that goes through and either accepts or rejects those applications. And then we have a second grant opportunity, and this is for more seasoned, experienced applicants, programs, and that's in September. We just launched our NOFO last week for this. This is the competitive AmeriCorps state grant application NOFO. And again, you would have to have prior experience operating a program or at the very least a planning grant to be able to apply for this. These are competitive, so you would apply first through Volunteer New Hampshire. Our review committee would either accept or reject it. If we accepted it, we would then move it on to a national competition through AmeriCorps, the agency, where that application would compete against other applications in a national pool. So definitely more competitive. That's why we grow our programs from planning grant to a formula grant to then submitting to competitive application. Okay, and up on the screen, you'll see our current slate of AmeriCorps programs. Some of them might look familiar to you. Of course, we have our City Year AmeriCorps program, which is pretty big. They're based out of Manchester. We also have our Student Conservation Association program. They've been around for a while and doing great work in the environmental stewardship field. We are pleased to announce the launch of our brand new program with the International Institute of New England. And this is dealing with refugee and immigrant social empowerment. So we just launching it this month. They came off of a planning grant with us. So really a neat new program that we're proud to be supporting. So any questions on any of the AmeriCorps state programming or some of the Volunteer New Hampshire resources that we offer? We'll also take questions too at the end of the presentation. So. Okay, looks like one question popped up. How much does it cost to be a host site for 1 to 2 members? That's a great question. It really depends on the program that you're applying to be a host site with. So I can't really answer that. I mean, I could give you a ballpark range of, I know some of them have been as low as like 3,000, but I've seen some of them be upwards of 8,000 or 9,000 as well. So it's really program dependent. So what I would suggest is reaching out to one of the programs that you think your organization might be a good fit with, and start the process there to see if you'd be a good fit and what it would cost.
Okay, are we ready for the next section, or what? Should I pause a moment longer for questions?
I think we're good, Anne. We can.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to talk a little, this is Ann Ostberg again. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Northeast region of AmeriCorps and the AmeriCorps Vista program. So the Northeast region of AmeriCorps is a region that covers 7 states: New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. Our region is made up of 20 plus staff members. We manage all of the AmeriCorps Vista projects in the region. We manage all AmeriCorps senior grants in the region. We manage AmeriCorps national direct grants, and we work with our state service commissions who operate AmeriCorps state grants. So that, in a nutshell, is what our office does. And part of that work, as you saw on that last slide, is managing AmeriCorps Vista. AmeriCorps Vista is a unique program in that it is a non-competitive program. It's also because it's a little smaller than some of our other programs. Just because it's non-competitive doesn't mean we do have to make tough decisions sometimes about which programs are approved. So, but an AmeriCorps Vista program must contain all the elements on this particular slide. So there must be a focus on bringing people out of poverty. There needs to be engagement, bringing the local community into the project in some way, engaging them in designing the project, implementing the project, and evaluating the project's success. AmeriCorps Vista members build capacity, so they're not doing direct service, but they're engaged in capacity building activities. An easy example to use is that instead of tutoring children, they might help train the volunteers that would do the tutoring, or they might help create the tutoring volunteer program that would then recruit volunteers who would do the actual tutoring. So they're building the capacity of an organization. And all of that is intended to lead to sustainable solutions. So AmeriCorps Vista members start with the end in mind. The goal is that Vista members will work themselves out of a job, and that when their service ends, when a Vista project closes, then there'll be something sustainable left behind. So these are all aspects of AmeriCorps Vista projects. So some of the organizational requirements are that you must be a nonprofit organization, a federally recognized Native American tribe, or a city, state, and local government are all eligible to become AmeriCorps Vista project sponsors. Another requirement of the organization is that you would develop a project plan to utilize these AmeriCorps members in building long-term solutions to poverty-related issues within a community. You also have a requirement to obtain community input and report on your progress as your project is implemented. You are responsible for recruiting, training, and supervising members, and you comply with all other terms and conditions of the grant that you would receive from AmeriCorps. And similar to AmeriCorps State and National, AmeriCorps Vista members must be 18 years old. AmeriCorps Vista members must commit to 1 full year of full-time service. So that makes it a little different than other AmeriCorps programs. It is a full 365 days of full-time service. The Vista members need to be able to perform those capacity building activities that we described briefly. They receive a modest living allowance, and they're eligible for the Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award or an end of service cash stipend. There are other benefits on our website, but that's kind of a quick synopsis. So the process for applying to have AmeriCorps Vista members with your organization is that it takes about 3 to 4 months from the time you would submit a concept paper to when your application could be awarded. So you would submit a concept paper, the regional office reviews that concept paper, we provide you with feedback. If we decide to approve your concept paper, then you're invited to submit a full application. That full application is then reviewed and we offer you feedback. We sometimes we have to say no at that full application stage, but more typically we would be able to approve that and then move your project on to the award stage. Once your application is awarded, then you would be able to start recruiting Vista members. We do have support for you as you are recruiting. We have a recruiting staff person that helps with recruiting, especially our new projects that may need some extra assistance. We have a website where people submit applications online, and you can access applications through that site. So the award is just the beginning of your project. So that this phase, as described on the screen, is about a 3 to 4 month process. So that's the end of the Vista section. I realize it's brief. If there is interest from folks in learning more about AmeriCorps Vista, we can offer a longer webinar in the future that would just focus on that. But I'm happy to take any questions right now, either in the chat or if you'd like to unmute and ask a question.
Anne, I have a question.
Yes.
So I know we were just talking about AmeriCorps State in the last section, and that, you know, at least in New Hampshire, we do typically have an organization has to have a minimum of about 10 members. Can you talk about what an organization is there a minimum amount of members an organization has to take, or how that works?
Yeah, great question, Emily. So at this time, we do not have a minimum requirement for Vista. You need to be able to support 1 full-time member at least. You can't say I want a half of Vista, for example. So, but we are kind of in a rebuilding phase with Vista in New Hampshire right now. So we are open to accepting concept papers and applications from organizations that are just looking for 1 Vista. It would be a future goal to have just a handful of larger projects, but right now, because we're in a rebuilding place, we're happy to accept concept papers and applications for just 1 Vista member. So, and I should also clarify that the Vista, if you become a Vista project sponsor, we pay the Vistas directly through AmeriCorps, through the federal government. Your only cash expense is providing the staff time for supervising that person, and then also providing the resources that individual needs to complete their assignment, which might mean a laptop computer or a cell phone, or, mileage to get to and from certain sites during their service day. So that's the cash requirement. So thank you for that question, Emily. Okay, well, if you have other questions, we're going to have time at the end, and I'll turn it over to Alana.
All right. So we're going to talk about AmeriCorps NCCC, which is the people power resource rather than a grant funding resource. So NCCC is a 10-month residential service program, meaning that our members both live and serve together on teams while traveling across the country to complete a variety of short-term projects that typically last about 6 to 8 weeks at a time. So essentially, we have teams of people that we send out across the country to help community partners address compelling community needs. So it's not funds, it's people that we're giving out as a resource. And the community partner designs a project to address an identified need in their community, and then we send the team to be the people power behind it. So during their 10 months of service, the team will complete 3 to 6 projects. Their year could start off with fighting food insecurity by repackaging bulk items and installing a hoop house at a food bank in Minnesota. Next, they may travel to Nebraska to respond to flooding and help at a distribution center. And then they may be off to Ohio to build homes for low-income families before they cap their year off by building trail in New Hampshire. NCCC teams vary in size quite a bit. We typically say they're about 8 to 10 members. They have been on the smaller side of that in the most recent years, and they typically range in age from 18 to 26 years old. And they come to us from all over the country, and so the teams themselves can actually be quite diverse. And Emily, if you want to jump ahead a slide for me. This has a bunch of different tasks of things that can be done. So I mentioned that they go out and they do these projects, and I gave some examples, but these are really like some example tasks. Because we serve in such a wide variety of areas, I just wanted to kind of give a wide example base here, but they can help board homes to help eliminate blight. They can facilitate youth programming. We've had teams do native tree plantings or playground repairs, prevent soil erosion. We've had volunteers to increase capacity and create local community buy-in for a project. We've even had teams, we had 2 this year that were supporting tax assistance programs. In recent years, we actually have been partnering with Squam Lakes Association the past couple of years, and the teams there have been helping to do trail building and trail maintenance projects up near Holderness. And so they've been helping to eliminate some erosion challenges there in that watershed. All right. And I touched on these a little bit. I got my slides out of order, so I touched on this a little bit earlier, and we'll go ahead and skip ahead one more slide. So these are really the 5 service areas that NCCC works in. Our service areas are slightly different than AmeriCorps at large's, and so ours are energy conservation, environmental stewardship and conservation, infrastructure improvement, natural and other disasters, and urban and rural development. And then next, we'll dive into some partnership asks. And so we set up our partnerships in a couple of different ways, but there's no direct fee for service. And so NCCC will provide the foundation for our teams to be successful. And in terms, we ask that sponsors provide anything that's project specific. And so some of that would be that the sponsors would be responsible for is project supplies and materials that are needed for the project. This could be lumber if you're doing affordable housing. It may be specific hand tools if you're doing trail work, things like that. NCCC does have a limited amount of hand tools that we could offer, but we really encourage sponsors to look locally first. Our teams travel in one 15-passenger van and have to get all of their stuff and any other materials with them out to projects. We do ask that there is site supervision and training. It really benefits an organization to take the time up front to provide any specialized training to ensure that the project's set up for success. NCCC will do a very baseline training with members, but because of the wide variety of work that we do, it's really more of like a basic tool introduction, a basic safety introduction, and then we rely on sponsors to give that more project-specific training. We are a full-time AmeriCorps program, so similar to what people were talking about earlier, our members do have to earn a certain number of hours to graduate, and so that requires them to serve a 40 to 45 hour per week schedule. And so we would ask that partners develop a work plan that has keeps the team fully engaged during that, to include inclement weather tasks. Should it be storming outside, or should something else come up? Excessive heat has been a common one lately. The other thing that we ask is that their sponsors provide lodging. This is often the biggest ask we have of sponsors, and we're going to talk more about it here in a minute. But with that, in that housing, we would ask that you either provide access to a kitchen and then we can fund them to go grocery shopping, or we would ask that you provide them all their meals, which in some cases is easier for some organizations such as camps and others to be able to do. All right, so when we say housing, most people typically think of this dorm room where everything is really pretty and organized. However, in reality, housing often looks a lot more like this. It's really bare bones with NCCC provided cots on mats on the ground. We gave them some sleeping bags, and they keep their their red bags with their clothes in the corner. Really, we've had teams stay in a variety of housing, but it doesn't need to be something fancy. Sometimes it is, in that sponsors will pay for accommodations such as hotels or Airbnbs, but we also have a number of teams that stay in more temporary shelters or non-traditional housing, such as church basements, YMCA or other camps or retreat centers, college or military dorms, yurts. Sometimes we've had teams stay in armory facilities or community centers. We've even had some teams camp. So there's definitely a variety of what housing could look like. NCCC does require that sleeping spaces are reserved for NCCC members only, but we will work with sponsors on the other shared spaces. And so we just ask that you don't let housing be a barrier. I'm happy to talk through with you more ideas around housing or discuss your housing proposal if that's the one thing that's your hiccup. I know sometimes with partnerships, people can get overwhelmed by some of the asks that we have. And so creating some partnerships within your community can sometimes help to bring a team in. And so sometimes one person will provide the housing, one person will work on writing the application. Sometimes the work can be split between the two organizations. There's a lot of ways to set it up, and I'm happy to talk further about that. All right, to give you an idea of some of the things we'll provide on our end, we do provide a transportation in the form of a 15-passenger van and fuel for that vehicle. We'll also provide our teams with basic personal protective equipment, that eye and ear protection, hard hat, gloves, composite-toed boots. We give them that basic training that I mentioned earlier, and we do cover all the liability on them under the Federal Tort Claims Act and the Federal Employee Compensation Act. All right, so if you are interested in partnering with AmeriCorps and NCCC and having a team come serve with you in New Hampshire, we are currently looking for partners for projects in 2024. And to receive a team, there is an application process, as we do have limited teams. So the first step is to complete the concept form, which is a short form that gives a brief overview of the need in your community and how the project will address it. We do try to review those concept forms within 5 days of receiving them. And then after it's reviewed, you'll be contacted for more information or invited to submit the full application, which would be submitted directly to me upon completion. And then once that application deadline has passed, applications are reviewed and applicants are notified whether or not they would be receiving a team approximately 6 weeks ahead of the requested start date. So this next slide has our anticipated project dates for 2024 on them. It also has a link, which I'll drop in the chat here after I'm finished speaking, to our request for proposal, which has some more good information about the program, types of work that we do. It goes through those partner responsibilities that I discussed here shortly. But the first deadline coming up is that November 1st deadline, which is for projects taking place from February 29th through April 25th. And then you can kind of see how they lay out the rest of the year As I mentioned, though, that concept form due date is the one you want to be looking at. We have to receive a concept form in order to be able to accept an application. So if you're thinking about timing, that's the date you want to be paying extra attention to. All right, so I will pause there and see if anybody has any NCCC specific questions.
We did have a question in the chat, Alana. I believe Anne answered it, but it said, how long does an NCCC project run for? And it looks like the answer is 3 to 13 weeks. Do you care to expound on that or anything?
Yeah. So if you look at the request for proposals, they're typically about 6 to 8 week timeframes. And what we'll do is we'll partner people up on our end to create enough service for the team. So if you have 2 weeks worth of work service, I would encourage you to go ahead and apply. We can still take that. Less than 2 weeks, I would want to just have a conversation with you. We have to be able to justify the funds to get the team out to New Hampshire. We're based in Iowa. And so we typically look for kind of that minimum of 2 weeks, but we can go longer than that. And then in our region, we typically go about 8 weeks in length for the full amount of time, but people are welcome to apply for multiple rounds, we call them, so multiple projects within a 1 year's time frame. An example is a couple years ago, we helped build some volunteer housing for an organization, and so they applied in the spring, and there wasn't enough time to finish the project up, and they applied for a team early summer so that they could have that whole project wrapped up tight throughout the year. We can't always serve people more than once in a year, but it never hurts to try. All right, well, I'll turn it over to Anne then.
Great, thanks, Alana. So last but not least, I'm going to talk about AmeriCorps seniors, and I'm adding in the chat some links, some web links to information about each of our programs. But AmeriCorps seniors is the part of AmeriCorps that engages people age 55 and older in service. As you heard earlier, all AmeriCorps programs, most of AmeriCorps programs are open to people older than that are 55 and older. However, AmeriCorps seniors is dedicated to that age group. So there are funding opportunities for AmeriCorps seniors every 6 years for RSVP. RSVP is the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program, or if we have an existing grant that relinquishes. And we encourage you to consider partnering with AmeriCorps seniors programs as a volunteer station. We have 7 programs around the state of New Hampshire, and so we would invite you to contact us if you'd like more information about how to connect with them. But overall, there are 4 programs with AmeriCorps seniors across the country. RSVP, as I already mentioned, the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program, the Senior Companion Program, the Foster Grandparent Program, and the Senior Demonstration Program. So RSVP engages in a wide variety of activities. Seniors can be of any income strata themselves. There's no restriction. It's not restricted to any particular income, high or low income individual. There also are no service hour requirements. So if you're an RSVP volunteer, you may choose to volunteer 40 hours a week, or you might want to do 1 hour a month. So it's kind of whatever the individual volunteer would like to do, and what the organization is asking for as well. So if say an RSVP volunteer signs up to be a tutor in a school, they might be required to go once a week, but it would be for a limited number of hours. So the Foster Grandparent Program focuses on education and mentoring. There are income restrictions, meaning that the individuals that are enrolled in the Foster Grandparent Program, their income cannot exceed 200% of the poverty rate. They do receive a small stipend in exchange for their service, and they can serve anywhere from 5 to 40 hours a week. So there is that minimum of 5 hours a week and a maximum of 40 hours a week. The Senior Companion Program is very similar to the Foster Grandparent Program, except instead of focusing on education and mentoring of youth, it's focused on helping seniors age in place. So it matches seniors with other seniors to help provide support so that individual can remain living in their own home. Senior Companions also have income restrictions. Their income cannot exceed 200% of poverty. They do receive a small stipend, and they also can serve anywhere from 5 to 40 hours a week. The Senior Demonstration Program is a funding opportunity that's only available in special circumstances. For example, during COVID, we had the opportunity to launch some funding for senior demonstration programs. So that's kind of a special opportunity that comes along every now and then. At this time, we don't have any senior demonstration programs in New Hampshire, but we might have that opportunity again in the future. So as we've already said, AmeriCorps senior volunteers need to be 55 or older. They engage in a diverse range of volunteer activities. They have the flexibility to choose where they would like to serve, and they can serve anywhere from a few hours a week to 40 hours a week. They do provide a wide variety of community services. Some are doing like people in this picture. They're working in, looks like in a food pantry, helping to prepare food. They might be helping to build homes for Habitat for Humanity. They might be going into schools and help provide education programs to children, helping seniors live independently. So it's kind of whatever the individual volunteer would like to do and whatever the program is seeking. So a wide variety of activities can be completed by AmeriCorps seniors. And that concludes our formal part of the presentation. We are available to answer questions. Our contact information is here on the screen. We will be sending this out later, so you'll all have a copy of this presentation, but we'll pause and let you ask some questions. And thank you for your time today.
Looks like we do have a question. Can an out-of-state nonprofit apply for a planning grant to establish a program in New Hampshire?
That is a good question. So the answer to that is yes, as long as you plan on operating the program in New Hampshire and having office space in New Hampshire as well. I'll add to that too, if you are interested in operating a program in more than just New Hampshire, so more than one state, that is a different application process. You would apply to AmeriCorps National, so directly to AmeriCorps, the agency, and that they have their own, I guess, NOFO and different criteria to apply to that.
And can you explain what a volunteer station is and how a nonprofit can become one?
I'm sorry, who is that question for me? Did you say?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
because you
great.
mentioned volunteer station in your AmeriCorps seniors presentation.
Yeah, thank you. So a volunteer station is basically a site where volunteers would serve with an AmeriCorps seniors program. So if an organization is interested and thinks they might be interested in becoming a volunteer station, we would put them in touch with the existing AmeriCorps senior grantee that we think might be the best fit, and then they would have a conversation with that organization about whether or not it's a good fit for the program. So yeah, so if somebody would like to have volunteers, AmeriCorps seniors volunteers serving, please contact us at nh@cns.gov, and we will be sure to connect you with the organization that would be providing services in the area where you're located. So we've got programs that basically serve the entire state of New Hampshire, so we can put you in touch with the correct one. I hope that's enough.
We serve as a station, so that's why I wasn't sure if when she said Anne, this is Anne from Cornerstone DNA, and so we actually serve as a station for the Senior Companion Program, and it's a beautiful program. It's super well run, and it's an honor to serve as a station. So if anyone was intrigued by that, I'm happy to answer any questions, because I've been here 7 years and we've been a station the whole time. So it's a beautiful group of people that really augment our clinical services. They complete our circle of caring is what we like to say. So.
Thank you, Anne. That's terrific. And yeah, so your organization would sign a memorandum of understanding with the existing program, in this case, the Senior Companion Program, and then volunteers of the Senior Companion Program would then be placed with clients of the VNAA. Is that right, Anne?
Actually, so they receive referrals from the community at large. Oftentimes, I think it works well because we do serve a population that very much benefits from companion volunteerism, but we also the seniors will visit anyone, like regardless if they're patients of ours or not. Oftentimes we'll get referrals from like self-referrals, or it could be from like a case manager from a local hospital or a senior center, and or the Bureau of Elderly and Adult Services. And oftentimes caregivers will call too, because they're noticing that their loved one's super lonesome. So we get the coolest calls, like, so-and-so really would love to play Scrabble every week. Do you have anyone? And then you can match them up. A lot of the senior companions are just super kind. And I had one that went and found a Scrabble game specifically so she could go play Scrabble with this lady every week. And it's just it's a great program.
Great. Thank you for sharing your personal experiences. I think that's really valuable.
My pleasure. I just did a heart emoji. I don't know if people can see it. I just wanted to say that.
For folks wanting to learn more about Volunteer New Hampshire, the resources that we offer, the trainings, events, grant competitions, please sign up to be on our contact list, and you'll get notification every time we have a grant opportunity and when there's upcoming events.
Looks like we are not showing any other questions in the chat.
Hi, I do apologize. I was trying to type fast, but I'll go ahead and ask. Here at Harbor Care, we are putting together a volunteer program, and I have signed up for the base camp, and I think I've been in contact with Emily actually. I wanted to learn a little bit more about their resources and creating a volunteer handbook, and what's important to incorporate there within that handbook that's separate from an employee handbook.
Emily, do you want to take that one?
I could give it a shot. So that's really under the, I guess. So on our website, volunteernh.org, we do have some resources about for organizations who are looking to improve their volunteer program. I don't know off the top of my head if a volunteer handbook is one of those resources. However, that is a great question to ask, and that's why we have the New Hampshire Volunteer Engagement Network, because it's really meant to be a place where people can ask, like, hey, I'm making a volunteer handbook. Can someone share what theirs are? And so and that's why we have our online base camp, which is where people can share documents, or during the meetings, people can, exchange emails and then be like, hey, can you be my mentor? So that's really what we're trying to do with Nevin. So fingers crossed that is how it works.
Well, I do appreciate that. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of research on the different the different volunteer roles, right? And the opportunity for those roles, and looking at internships as well, and working with different schools to be a host site for these students coming on board, and then also trying to bring on volunteers to help within our many programs. So thank you.
I just wanted to mention too that AmeriCorps, starting this month in September, is celebrating its 30-year anniversary, which is phenomenal. It just stands to show as a testament to the power of service across the country.